See, these are spores coming
Oh,
out now.
wow.
Yeah. So all this mass of stuff inside the little structure is just a mass of spores. But those spores are getting blown away by the wind. They land somewhere, and they'll germinate and produce another puffball colony somewhere.
This one.
Yeah. When these are young, they're white. They're mature at this stage, but when they're young, we might actually find some.
Yeah.
But they're white and they're edible at that stage.
Fantastic.
There's a giant one of these as well that people often find in their gardens. I regularly get emails from people. What is this thing? I found it down at the end of the garden on a compost heap or something.
Yeah.
And they're massive. They're big and white, and they can be up to half a metre across.
Uh-huh.
They're called giant puffballs.
Okay. I'm gonna have to poke it.
Yeah, do it there.
Wow.
That's good, actually. That's better than the other one because the light is coming through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. And
You ready?
action.
Okay, my name is Dr. Tom Harrington. I'm a mycologist and a botanist, and I work in UL. I've had a lifelong interest in mushrooms, and today we're in Cratloe Wood, and we're going to go looking for some mushrooms. We're probably more interested in edible ones, but there's a huge range of different kinds of mushrooms. In fact, there's probably over 2,000 or 3,000 species in Ireland. Now, we're a bit late in the year this year. Normally you get most mushrooms in from September to October. We're in November now. The weather's getting cold, so we're likely to find less of them, but still we may find some. Okay. And we actually we've actually found a couple, because we've got two chanterelles. This is the highly esteemed chanterelle. They're very, very good to eat. You normally get them in September, October. These ones have just hung on into November. We've got very few and only got 2 or 3, so these really are just the remnants of probably a larger amounts that were produced earlier on in the autumn.
Okay, cool.
Because if you look at the back of them, they have little ridges. Most mushrooms have gills, and we might see that later. But these don't have gills. They kind of have ridges. They look like gills, but they're actually just ridges, and that's how you recognise them. And they have got a very distinctive colour, deep yellow colour, like, as I describe it, the colour of the yolk in a free-range egg. That's how you really describe
like
them.
a milky butter.
Yeah. And they're very, very good to eat. And they're relatively rare in Ireland. They're not the commonest edible mushroom. This probably is one of the more common ones. It's also a chanterelle, but you can see the difference between the two of them. They kind of have the same sort of shape, but they have quite different colours. But again, on this one, you can see these distinctive ridges rather than gills.
Oh.
So this one is also edible. It's called the winter chanterelle, or the trumpet chanterelle. There are various names for it. And this is much more common in Ireland. You find it in lots of different woodlands, and we'll probably find more of it later on today as well.
Okay. Lovely.
What we're also hoping to find is maybe the hedgehog mushroom, which is the most common edible mushroom in Ireland, and is probably the easiest to identify as well. So maybe later on we'll find some of that. We came into this area here hoping that we would find it, but it normally occurs here, but we haven't found it yet. So we may go on somewhere else where there's a better chance of finding it.
Excellent.
The greatest diversity of mushrooms is in woodlands, because all of these mushrooms, or most of them anyway, are actually associated with the trees. They're living on the roots of the trees. That's how lots of these fungi live. They form a sort of a mutual association, beneficial association, or symbiosis with the roots of the trees. You don't know they're there, but they're working away. They're helping the trees to take up nitrogen and phosphorus. And the only time you become aware of their presence is when you wander into the woods in the autumn time and you see them producing these structures here, which are their reproductive parts. So when you eat mushrooms, what you're eating is the reproductive part of the mushroom, the part that produces the spores.
Uh-huh.
And then these only last a couple of days at most, and then they'll disintegrate, disappear. But the fungus themselves, or the fungi themselves, are there continuously, and they're helping the trees to survive basically. And the trees in turn give them a certain proportion of the sugars they make from photosynthesis, and that's how lots of these fungi survive. And then you have other ones that actually break down dead leaves and so on, and other ones that actually break timber or even can attack living trees, and we call those parasites. And we may come across some of those too later on as well.
Cool. Excellent.
They're normally sort of kind of a beigey colour.
Straight out
Yeah,
of the giraffe.
yeah. And the way you can recognise these very easily. I'll get a bigger one just to show you this. There's one here already, that's not so big. But if you turn them over, they don't have gills. I don't know if you can see this. They have little spines.
Oh yeah.
See if you touch
Like
those
little
out, they
spikes.
break, little spikes or spines.
Yeah.
And that's why they're called hedgehog mushrooms, because they have these
Oh, right,
very
like a
distinctive
hedgehog's
spines. Yeah,
back.
like a hedgehog, back of a hedgehog.
So are these edible?
These are very, very, very good to eat. And the other advantage of them is that they're unmistakable, really. I suppose if you know what to look for, they're unmistakable. Because they really can't be confused with any other
Because of the
poisonous
underneath.
species, for example. There's no unpalatable species or poisonous species that has a similar sort of shape
Okay.
or has the spines on the back.
And they look like the kind of chunks of them is, that this is sort of like a piece of
Yeah,
a mushroom.
yeah.
So
The stems.
does it matter when you find it that it isn't this perfect mushroom that say obviously
Oh
some
no, they can.
beasties have
Yeah,
been eating it?
no, they can be. No, these are a bit misshapen because they're old. But there are two kinds of hedgehog mushrooms. We might see another one later on. This is a big one.
But so
and-
what I mean is it safe to eat just because clearly something else has been there first? Does it matter?
Oh, the fact that it's eaten. No,
Yeah.
well, the snails and slugs will eat them, but well, if you cut away the eaten part, you can still
eat the
them.
rest.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. Mushrooms, even the very toxic, very poisonous ones. There's one called the death cap that will be regularly eaten by slugs and snails.
But we can't eat it.
Oh, we definitely can't eat it.
Okay.
You know? Even a small bit of it is enough to.
So
finish
just
you off.
because it's been a bit eaten by the beasts doesn't mean it's safe.
Doesn't mean it's safe, no.
Ah, okay.
In fact, there is no real character that tells you a mushroom is safe.
How do you know then?
You just got to know them. You got to learn them.
I
You got to go out with
see.
somebody who knows them.
Got to go out
Or
with
le-
you.
Well, somebody who knows them. Not necessarily
Yeah.
me, but somebody who knows them.
Yeah.
Because there are dangers.
Right. What are the
Yeah.
dangers?
Well, the dangers are death is one. I mean, there's a few mushrooms that can cause liver damage. There's a few that can cause, and that liver damage can be fatal. You know, if it's not caught in time, you're talking about liver transplant. There are others that can cause kidney damage, and again, the same prognosis is there as well. You know, you're facing kidney transplant
Wow.
if you don't die. That is, you know.
So that's probably
Yeah.
why people are hesitant.
Oh yeah, and with good reason. You know, you got to be.
Because. So we found a little puffball here.
Yeah.
How cute is that?
There's another one over here, a different species actually.
So will you tell us what that is now?
That's the early stage of a puffball. They're usually white at that stage, and some of them have little spines on the surface.
So that's edible.
Some of the puffballs are edible at that stage, but they have to be white.
Yeah.
If we cut open that now, you'd see a kind of a whitish material inside, sort of spongy.
Yeah.
And later on, what will happen, that will get powdery, and the whole structure will darken, and you'll get a little opening at the top here.
Yeah.
And at that stage,
Then we get
the
it
spores are
soaked.
dry, and when raindrops land on it, spores will be expelled out through the hole. So that's how it completes its life cycle.
So tell us there, Tom, we got a nice hedgehog.
Yeah, that's the wood hedgehog mushroom. You can see the spines on the back.
Yeah.
That's a distinctive character, really. Can't mistake them for anything else.
Yeah.
You see they're a little bit misshapen. They're not really they don't have a nice circular cap on them very often. They can be sort of lumpy.
Oh, we got a little sluggy fella,
Yeah.
little beast.
The nice thing about these is actually that they cook very well. You know, some mushrooms, when you cook them, they contain a lot of water, and they kind of go soft and sort of slimy almost. But these don't. They actually retain their shape and so on, and provided you don't overcook them, they're very, very good. Vitamins and that kind of thing. But they're probably not. You hear people talking about these marvelous. What do they call them? certain kind of foods.
Superfoods?
Superfoods.
Yeah.
Fungi are superfoods. I don't know if you'd go that far. Really,
I don't
with
think
them.
they've come into the superfood thing, but it's not
Yeah.
to say that they're not. Your brain explodes. Good morning. Oh.
I'm not performing that.
He's doing fine. Oh.